What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and I'm super stoked for this one. I am legit. This is one of the ones when I found out this was a thing and this was in contention. This is one of the screeners I was really looking forward to. This is The Last Showgirl. Um, I actually have an existing review on my channel of Barbed Wire. It's already there. You can see. Uh, Type it in, type my name and then type barbed wire. I'm not going to link it, but if you're really that interested, so the arc of Pamela Anderson to see where she is now, you know, this didn't have audio description on it, and because most of the stuff that's presented for my consideration does not. Even if I send an email out to people, it just confuses them. They like they don't even know how to give it to me. I sent an email about a screener to a film that I knew had audio description because it's playing in theaters, and I just that rep has responded to me before, and then when I was like, "Hey, can I have audio? This movie's clearly playing in theaters with audio description. Is there any way that I could get a hold of that track?" Dead silence. Dead. They don't know how to do it. Um, I did last year. Neon was great about it. Neon was like, "Here's the audio description you need," and I got all the audio description tracks from Neon. So fantastic work. But this year, it's like occasionally an indie filmmaker will be like, "Oh yeah, I do have an audio description track for that," and that's a pleasant surprise. But most of it is just like Jesus. Anyway, so maybe there's audio description for The Last Showgirl. I really don't know. Um, but I'm absolutely here for Pamela Anderson. But she's not the only one. She is joined by Jamie Lee Curtis, Dave Bautista, Jason Schwartzman. Like like people signed up for a Pamela Anderson movie in a big way, and I'm super stoked for her for this because she's good. like I she's actually the thing is that this feels like it was written for her. Like it feels like the right role at the right time, that she's gained sort of like the emotional maturity. She's taken some acting classes, obviously. She understands this character, Shelley. Is that right? I think her name is Shelley. Um, and she fully embraces the aging experience. This is a great sort of companion piece to what Demi Moore is doing in The Substance when we're talking about women who were beautiful and recognized for being beautiful. And beauty was sort of part of their job. And when they're no longer deemed to be beautiful, they don't work. And that's the same sort of thread here in The Last Showgirl is Pamela Anderson is one of like the classic old school Vegas showgirls, and like she doesn't consider herself to be like an exotic dancer. She calls herself like a nude dancer. um and she's in sort of like one of those old school Vegas type reviews. She doesn't dance on a pole, you know um and unfortunately times have changed, and sort of like her friend and mentor is Jamie Lee Curtis, and Jamie's already been like long ago removed out of this world. So, and Pamela's just now finally experiencing it herself, and she's trying to get work, and her show's closing, so she, you know, is going to have to try to find someplace new that will take her. And that's the struggle. The film opens with her doing this audition. Like she comes in, she says how old she is, and she says she's 36, and she's like, I'm sorry, I'm actually 40. She bumps it up to like I think 43. I think that was what it was. And and then from there we kind of get the rest of the story, and then will come back to the audition at the end. That audition bookends the film. Um and then you get sort of the story in between, which has her navigating. She has an estranged daughter, who is not really impressed at all with her mom, and finds it weird that her mom invites her to like one of the final shows before the show closes. She's like, "You want me to come?" because, and it is sort of, I mean, I guess, because one of the things is she acknowledges, she talks about how, she spent her whole life as a kid just sitting outside with like a Game Boy or something like that. And she's like, well, Pamela says, Shelley, I think her character's name is Shelley, um, is like, well, I didn't feel like it was an appropriate place for you as a kid. But yeah, she's now inviting her daughter. I think it's so weird to invite your daughter to come see you naked in a show. I just, I think it's so weird. I remember seeing an interview of 50 Shades of Grey. Um, it was like the premiere, or it was around the time of the premiere. I can't remember if it was like the literal premiere, but it was Dakota Johnson was out with her mom and dad, and somebody asked Melanie if she had seen the movie, and she was like, "No, I don't want to watch that." like, like conceptually, she knows like the limits. She's like, "I'm not gonna watch my daughter in 50 Shades of Grey. Are you kidding?" like, I mean, I'm happy she's getting work, but no, ew. So, I like that Shelley. But what I saw was sort of like that last minute desperation to make any sort of contact, like lasting contact with her daughter in this. And Shelley just doesn't, she doesn't know how to be a mom. It was never like really her thing. And even though back then, she was like, well, little girls shouldn't see this. She also just doesn't have any boundaries. For her, she's like naked all the time, So for her, it's like it's very sort of nonplussed. But for her daughter, it's like, why? And then even afterwards, when they're talking about, it, they're like, that was weird. Like she just has such like a weird, like, why did you invite me to that? Like she's just so, she does not understand. Um, I love Jamie Lee Curtis in this. I think I might like her more here than Everything Everywhere All at Once. I was a little sort of like surprised when she won for that. That's basically like a career win for Jamie. But I really love her work here as well. I don't think she'll get a supporting actress nomination. I don't think Pamela's going to get a lead actress nomination, but she did get in at the Gothams, and I think she'll get in other places too. I expect Pamela will show up at a couple more nomination ceremonies, some critics groups, um, certainly, but I don't know that she's necessarily going to rocket into the major ceremonies, which is unfortunate. I would love to see her get like a surprise nomination somewhere, because this feels to me like just a couple years ago when everybody was talking about Red Rocket, and all Sean Baker did with that, if we're being really honest, it's a good movie. It's not my favorite Sean Baker movie, but it's a good movie. Um, So I'm not trying to besmirch Red Rocket when I oversimplify it. Is he found an actor in Simon Rex that nobody thought could act, and he proved they could. And then Simon Rex started getting all this awards buzz. But before that, if you had asked literally anybody, is Simon Rex a good actor? People would have said no, because there wasn't really anything in his body of work to suggest that. So Sean Baker found the right film, the right role to sort of showcase the fact that Simon Rex could do that. And he used that to propel Red Rocket's chances, because everybody was looking at it and going, wow, this dude, you know? It's sort of like, I hate to say it, but in a weird world, if Pauly Shore's like Richard Simmons biopic worked out, it'd be like that. I mean, people would be like, oh, we didn't think this would work. Oh my God. you know, like, but it would have that like wow factor to it. And then you have to sort of like dial it back and be like, okay, so aside from it being clearly the best thing you've ever done in your life, is this the same thing happened with Jean-Claude Van Damme and JCVD. Like, he had awards buzz for that. People forget that he did. He had awards buzz back in the day. It was low. It was on the low end, but people were like, he's really good in this. Yeah, because the film sort of toned down what he does, but also leaned into who, like, his strengths. And that's kind of what this does, is, um, Pamela Anderson didn't have to play like a lawyer fighting for justice or anything, you know, like, it's not that far removed. It's a character she's able to understand and relate to. She's a mother, so she can understand what being a mother's like. I mean, all of these things are just, like, right in her wheelhouse, and it's like, the perfect casting. Like, this should be best casting. Like, for anybody who's doing best casting, um, this is, because this film, with anybody else, I don't even think would be on somebody's radar. The film is okay, but I don't know if you don't have. I think the whole reason we're talking about it is because of Pamela Anderson. Um, I don't even know if you put somebody else in this role. I don't know who else would get this film necessarily this level of profile that we're talking about. But it's because somebody saw that there was potential here, and saw that if they could show the world that Pamela Anderson is more than meets the eye, like a transformer, um, that people will respond, and people have responded. And The Last Showgirl is a good movie, um, but it is definitely anchored by the desire to see whether or not Pamela Anderson can act. And I didn't get to see her in Chicago and New York when she did that, when she made her Broadway debut, which I thought was interesting at the time. She's playing Roxy in Chicago. But you know what? Good for her. Like, good for you. Like, turn it around. I hope some people pick her up and put her in some other things. Um, I did enjoy some of her work back in the day. So, um, I I don't always enjoy when somebody puts a mic in front of her in interviews, but yeah, I'd root for her for this. I might vote for her. This could be, I don't know. I'm gonna see how the season goes. It's sort of like one of those, like, just like, this one's for me. It's sort of how I feel about, like, both sort of Pamela Anderson and June Squibb right now. Is like, I want to vote for them unless I'm given a compelling reason not to. Like, I need enough compelling reasons to not vote for them, because I would love to see both of their names sort of recognized this year for performances that I don't think anybody saw coming. So, that's my thought. I need audio description though. Like, I had no idea what the concept of her show was. Like, I nothing, not I have no concept of that at all. Um, I'd also love to know what the characters look like. I've heard some pretty gnarly interpretations of Jamie Lee Curtis's stuff here, and I think that would have been interesting to see how she's described, because and some other reviewers have described her as, um, not traditionally the attractive Jamie Lee Curtis that we're used to. A little bit sort of like old and weathered, and the desert sun has beaten on her, sort of. I don't know if that's true, but I would have loved to just have more context from the audio description. Plus, she auditions and I have no idea what her audition is. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, there are plenty of times where I can point to, contextually not being able to follow or understand certain sequences, but I can hear in her voice, I can hear in Pamela Anderson's voice, the inflection, the tone, the choices, the pauses, you know, the sometimes when she's very self assured, and sometimes when she's not, and she doesn't know, she doesn't have the answers, and she has much more depth, and she's not here to just be, you know, your sex toy essentially, which is what she was in the 90s. She was just sort of like this visual thing for people to be like, she was like an object in films. And the only time she was ever, you know, every time she got anything other than Baywatch, she was basically had to lean into that. I mean, even in something like her sitcom Stacked, it's still based around, you know, being a certain thing and a certain type. This is the most character she's ever had. And yeah, I think she's a really nice job here. So I would recommend The Last Showgirl. Oscar chances, I think, are limited to whether or not and how much people can get behind Pamela Anderson. But like I said, with the Simon Rex thing, he didn't make it, and I don't think Pamela will either. But I do think it's possible Pamela could show up, send some precursors. I think her ceiling is probably Golden Globes. Will the Golden Globes pick her up for this? So, and I think to be able to say Golden Globe nominee Pamela Anderson is still I mean, even if she got a SAG nomination, Screen Actors Guild nominee Pamela Anderson is just like, if she was recognized by her peers, she would die. Like, I feel like that's all she's ever wanted. I feel like if she could get no other nomination this year, a SAG nomination, to be recognized by other actors for being an actor for a performance, I think she'd be perfectly fine not being an Oscar nominee. That's my guess. Because from everything I've ever read or heard about Pamela Anderson, is just the desire to be taken seriously as an actress. You know, if you leapfrog the SAG nomination to the Oscar nomination, then it's like you weren't recognized necessarily by your peers. But if you get that SAG nomination, that's just actors. That's actors recognizing actors. So, um, I think for her, that would really push her to much higher. And it's not like they don't every once in a while pick somebody out of sort of left field and put them in there. So maybe I have hopes for her. But it's a tough actress race. It's a really tough actress race. We'll see. We'll see what happens with some of these great performances this year. But she's one of them. Shockingly, she's one of them. I really loved her performance in this. Um, my official grade is unwatchable because of lack of audio description and the contextual stuff in terms of the shows and the Vegas stuff, but that has nothing to do with quality. Here, if I was trying to give you a range, I'm gonna lean A minus, but it could be an A and it could be a B plus. You know, that's the thing about when I throw a grade out at something that doesn't have audio description, is it's like audio description could actually make it or break it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there could be things in there that I don't like, which means it could slide down to a B plus, or I'm like, well, or I could be validated in my choice, or it could actually move up. So this could actually be an A for me. But really strong work. Dave Bautista's good here. I just don't see him going anywhere with a nomination, but he's really been trying to. He's somebody who is really chasing serious work and wants to be recognized. So it almost matches that theme for Pamela, is you got another person who's not known where he came from, you know, for being, he didn't necessarily study serious acting, but he's been making a lot of great career choices and working with the best directors. And I know Dwayne Johnson has an A24 film next year that is very buzzy and could easily get him a nomination in terms of, if a pro wrestler slash UFC fighter were to get into the Oscars, who would it be? But I feel like Dave Bautista is the one that's actually been putting in the work and putting in the time and actually been showing up and working with interesting directors and interesting movies and interesting projects. You know, from being in the James Bond films to doing, you know, Blade Runner 2049, James Gunn, Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, he's working with the right directors and the right movies, and he's not just trying to smash things. He's also not super concerned with necessarily always being in a box office, like, you know, $200 million grossing movie. So kudos all around. Very high on this movie. So thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side. And I will watch this with audio description. If it ever comes across the streaming service again, I'll do a second look on this. Absolutely. Would love to. So maybe that'll happen. Maybe you'll see that on my channel. So, but until then, see you guys on the other side.